Many of the outdoor museums in Norway have examples like these in Fyresdal of Middle Ages buildings, timber houses that are several hundred years old, and collections leading up to the late 1800s, or such as this stave church, which I think is probably about 500 or 600 years old. But here, for example, in Gudbrandsdal are many houses still being lived in, these ones from the 1800s. They're being kept in good condition, but also the tradition has been delivered over to the youngest generation, and new houses to live in, dwellings, are still being built in this technique at present. The work that I am mostly concerned with is the repair and restoration of these older buildings, usually ones around about 100 to 200 years old, so that they stay as viable, useful dwellings or cabins for people. Very often the damage is very localized and not really that difficult to repair, putting in smaller new pieces of timber to replace rot. This small garage has been moved to this site, and I'm repairing rotten timbers or replacing them as the building was made. Sometimes it's better to take the timber out in order to continue. Each building has its own logistics. Sometimes it's easy to make small patch repairs or carry on lufting up if there are several pieces damaged. And here I've taken them out of the house. And in this little series you can see where the repair is made in situation. There was a pile of firewood outside that house which caused that damage. That's a house from the 1940s. This is also from the 1940s. It was used as an animal shed, but the timber on that house was too badly damaged, so this has a new interior wall, insulated. This is what's called a stubbur, which is a small storage building for corn and dried meats, and they stand on these mushroom-shaped parts, and that one had fallen off. So after repairing those damaged timbers at the bottom that took the brunt of the weight of the building when it fell, the crane here is just lifting the house complete back onto its props. The remainder of this film and the subsequent films in this new series are going to follow in very slow TV style the restoration of a small farm building, a kind of baker house. They used these small buildings for all kinds of the rough work that needed to be done, which was moved here in the latter part of the 19th century and reuses timber from a much older building, probably from the 17th century. So without further ado, let's get over to the first day of work on this little farm building.
There's a low point by the right of the door. I'm going to start by lifting up that. Not sure if this is the same angle I took it last time, but that looks, the roof doesn't look quite right, but the window and the two windows and the door look like they might have improved a little bit. That's kind of what I was after. Cars in the way though to see clearly. put in a replacement one here. Right, I'd like to try and take that piece of wood out because I'd like to keep that and connect a new piece together with it. So there's not very much damage there. Certainly loads of good wood there. A little bit on the top here. I think there must have been a hole in the roof of this house. Possibly condensation damage. That's good enough. I think quite a few of the viewers might have seen some of my earlier hewing videos, and if you remember and you make the comparison here, most of those earlier ones were done on fresh timber, and this is seasoned timber that's been drying for several years, and it's really a lot harder work, much harder. Spruce gets harder as it gets older. Need to move the bed back on this really. Get rid of the chainsaw marks really, which are all the back marks. Over the years, this building has moved off its foundation as much as 20 centimetres towards the right of this picture now, and slightly deeper into the image, which has resulted in the foundation for the floor, which is separate from the foundation to the building. The beams stick out slightly further than they did originally, and this new piece of timber I'm using is perhaps a centimetre wider than the old one, so I'm having difficulties getting it in here. And I'm not going to move the building back, which is a possibility, but I think that the new chimney is a more recent addition and perhaps came after the building had moved slightly, so it has to stay in the same position. So the answer is to cut off the beams that are preventing this new piece of timber from getting in. I'll make a point to put the jack just there. It is necessary to have a really good jacking point around about there on the piece of timber, and these wedges are all to facilitate the ease with which I can take the piece of wood out again, because of course once I've done the line scribing for this new piece of timber up to the old one above, it's all going to have to come back out again in order to cut out the new shape. So the rest of the film now is going to be some footage of my drive to work. I just thought I would take a little bit of footage because the weather report is that there's going to be snow now, and for the last few days it's been quite cold. So there's what we call reem on all of the trees, frost. So it's pretty spectacular. And then there's this nice dark and brooding sky with a little bit of morning sun. So I thought it might make some nice footage. On my way to work this morning. This area of Norway is called Hardeland. But it's not too far away from Oslo, here and commute into the city. But this landscape I'm going to be driving through now is mostly small farms. Facing west at the moment, and that's behind that ridge there is the lake Randsfjord. It's spelled in English, but Randsfjord is pronounced in Norwegian. going to work today, but it's partly because it's so cold. The car thermometer says it's -8 outside. It was -10 at my house, and the work that I'm having to do is involves a lot of lying down on the ground because I'm doing the line scribing of a piece of timber, and I don't think I can really do that for more than 4 or 5 hours before I start getting a bit cold. I've got the dog with me today, that's nice. Yeah, Slam. It's just been logged. The big machines were here at the beginning of November. This area has been cultivated for a very long time. There's lots of Bronze Age archaeological evidence from this area. Quite a few grave mounds. And this, where we are now, is we're quite high up here. It's probably about 300 metres. But this is the mesothermal belt, which was very popular in the Bronze Age. You could avoid the marshy valley bases, the bottom of the valleys. And it's, there's quite a lot to be said about the mesothermal belt by people that do permaculture. It's good because it's slightly warmer in the winter and slightly cooler in the summer. It's kind of drains the cold air in the winter down, and the air is a little bit thinner, so it's a bit cooler in the summer. It makes for a slightly more stable climate, which I think is good for farming. So, driving northwest now. Timber houses. Okay, well, the morning sun's gone in now, so I think that's enough. Got the idea of what it looks like around here. As you can see, there's not much traffic, so I'm fiddling around with the camera a little bit, but I'm driving very slowly and very carefully. It's warmed up to -4, -3. And those are the snow clouds. That's the end of the high pressure.